and you ensure coordination of the policies and strategies of the ITU. What about you tell us and describe us something more about what internet censorship contains, and why do we actually why does it happen at all in the first place?
Okay, good morning everybody. I'm usually not used to reading declarations, but I think it's important for us to sort of put some of the discussions within the context of what is happening today and what also happened some decades back. Since the early 90s, the world has witnessed the explosive growth of the internet and associated ICT services and applications. Today, the number of internet users amounts to some 1.8 billion according to ITU data. The internet is a major medium for communication and a vital platform for many different applications and services in the information society, present in virtually every country on the planet and offering content in a host of different languages for different user groups, ethnicities, and uses. The internet is one of the most popular and democratic mediums of communication ever known. I use the word democratic here not in the political sense, but in its original sense, meaning rule or strength, or by the common people. So there are two words there, demos and crazy. One has to do with strength, one has to do with people. Internet is about the strength of people. The internet reflects much, but not all, of modern societies and users. Originally the preserve of defense researchers and scientists and telecommunication engineers, it is now the source and carrier of a whole range of services, content and information from a host of different end users. A little bit of philosophical background. The internet reflects the best and the worst of human society. It can be used for great good, such as coordinating relief efforts, disaster, remote sensing, telemedicine. However, the internet can also be used for evil purposes, e.g. to disseminate child pornography, to trade illicit goods, spread false rumors. In a sense, it reflects much of our present society, with both the best and the worst of human nature to be found online. And this is where we sometimes enter into a difficult area, such as the behavior we deem acceptable or cannot condone. This is something which is also culturally defined. Even though we are, 1.8 or so billion people connected, we come from different cultures and different societies and have different values. Let me talk a little bit about regulation. The growth of the internet has been accompanied by growing arguments for and against establishing filtering or censorship or regulation over the internet, as well as internet content and services. It is traditionally said that the internet is the meeting point of two cultures of regulation. Telecommunication networks, which have historically been highly regulated, and the internet, which has traditionally been more laissez-faire territory, originating as it did in a closed group of trusted users. Those of you who watch TV, listen to radio, you know that they normally have some authorities that are responsible for regulating content, what you see on TV. So in the broadcasting industry, regulation, censorship, filtering has always been there. Historically, the broadcasting industry has been heavily regulated on many levels in many countries, from outright censorship of news during wartime to the exclusion of certain regional or street dialects on state television to the protection of copyrights in music videos shown on TV. Today, content issues continue to dog the internet, and it is increasingly difficult to talk about internet without being drawn into the content issues, which have always been inherent in the broadcasting industry since its inception. Today, given technological convergence, it is increasingly difficult to disentangle the pipes from the content which run over them. Social platforms offer a seamless experience in which it is impossible to dissociate the data and the content from the application and network. Many governments around the world are now moving to address problems in the publication and dissemination of materials over the internet which are illegal under national laws and which may be considered harmful or otherwise unsuitable for users, particularly minors. Telecommunication regulators with a traditional mandate to regulate telecommunication networks are increasingly being bombarded with complaints and concerns about the content running over these networks. We are seeing growing convergence, not only in the structure of regulators themselves, such as telecom regulators becoming Communications Commission with broader mandates, including broadcasting in some countries, but we are also seeing a broadening scope of applications and regulations. For example, consider the Net Neutrality Debate. Some of you might be familiar with this. Some operators are expressing their desire to be able to prioritize certain types of traffic according to the application or content running over their networks. Others argue that services offerings may be disadvantaged purely on the basis of applications and content providers' ability to pay. Beyond basic questions of network management, more profound questions of revenue sharing arise, and whether and how to enable network operators to gain greater share of the revenues. In view of convergence, a shake-up of the industry model, as well as the models for regulation, is underway. There are various degrees of intervention in terms of content, regulation, or providing a framework of rules within which ICT services, information and communication technology services, are offered. We may distinguish monitoring, reviewing content, regardless of whether any intervention occurs or access to specific types of information is blocked or not. We may also look at filtering, which implies that some content may be blocked, and censorship, typically referring to the suppression, omission, and control of certain types of content, for different reasons based on different criteria, with a view of prioritizing specific interpretations. Reasons behind monitoring or regulating content on the internet are diverse, but I can broadly talk about 5 main categories. There are technological reasons for filtering content. In light of my previous comments, some countries or operators have blocked access to certain technologies or applications on the basis that they are against the laws of the country. We also have political reasons, which many of you might be aware of. Certain types of regulation appear to focus on prohibiting and or restricting politically sensitive content or material, which includes criticism of the government over the internet. So some content would be censored because the government considers that this has to do with criticizing the government. We have social, cultural, religious reasons. Some filtering or censorship over the internet is based on reasons concerned with the protection or promotion of existing traditional, social, cultural, and national religious values. The fourth is extension of existing domestic law. Before the internet, countries had law. I don't think there would be something like after the internet, but I still believe countries will continue to have national laws. Censorship. The censorship on the illegal content on the internet may be viewed in some countries as an extension of offline censorship. Internet service providers in most countries may be required to block access to certain types of internet content outside the country, including material that is illegal under the national law. The fifth is for security reasons. More recently, national security has proved one of the most commonly cited reasons for regulating content. Many governments have approved draft bills allowing the state control over the internet to improve national security, all the more so in the wake of recent concerns about terrorist activity, which have brought this issue to the front. In summary, in debating regulatory approaches, filtering, censorship on the internet, and content in a global context, we must take into account different elements of countries' national, cultural, socio-political, economic aspects, civil rights, including internationally agreed principles for human rights. During the 2 phases of the World Summit on the Information Society, which ITU played the lead role in organizing, world leaders and governments recognized that freedom of expression and the free flow of information, ideas, and knowledge are essential for the information society, and reaffirmed their resolve to foster and respect cultural diversity and address the ethical dimensions of the information society. ITU has worked closely with civil society and UN agencies in addressing some of the issues related to how the internet works and also some of the concerns coming from its membership. Internet freedom and the filtering of content are all growing areas of interest for ITU member states. The boundaries between content, services, applications, and network infrastructure are becoming increasingly blurred. Let me conclude by quoting the ITU Secretary General in a recent interview on BBC News. He basically said, the right to communicate cannot be ignored. We have entered the knowledge society and everyone must have access to participate. This quote put it within the context of what I just said, and I thank you for listening.